Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. Today I'm checking out this new split from Generation Exit and Mark Lind and the Unloved. There's a bunch of links down below. You got links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist that I put together every week, and the Patreon page. So make sure you check all that out. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. And make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. So this new split EP is from Generation Exit and Mark Lind and the Unloved. So each band has one half of the album. The Generation Exit half is called Stay Alive, and then the Mark Lind and the Unloved half is called The Oncoming Storm. This new EP was released on June 6th, and that's one I've been looking forward to checking out ever since I first found out about it. For Generation Exit, this is the follow-up to their 2023 album, Lifer, which I was a huge fan of. I had never heard of the band before then. That was their first album. I think the band actually formed in 2022. And then when Lifer was released, I think Lifer came out like the end of 2023. It ended up being one of my favorite albums of the year. And for this new EP, the band teamed up with Mark Lind and the Unloved, which is a solo side project from Mark Lind, who is the bassist and vocalist for the Ducky Boys. The Ducky Boys are a band from Boston, Massachusetts, started by Mark Lind back in 1995. When he was 18 years old. And the name of the band actually comes from an Irish street gang in the movie The Wanderers from 1979. And Generation Exit is a great street punk band from Austin, Texas. You've got members of Born to Lose, Riddling Kids, and Sniper 66 in it. I think the best way I can describe Generation Exit is they're this blend of hard rock, punk, with these I think working class influences, I think is the best way I can put it. If you like bands like Social Distortion, Dropkick Murphys, Rancid, Pennywise, I think you'll like this band also. Generation Exit is a very DIY band. They record everything, they produce everything, they release everything themselves, which is something that's been a staple of punk music for, the last 40 years. But it's something that a lot of newer bands have gotten away from doing. And whenever I hear anyone talk about how rock music is dead or music today sucks, Generation Exit is one of those bands, especially if you're somebody that likes heavier music. They're one of those bands I always point people to. They're a band that's not only putting out great music, but I think doing it the right way. So this new EP, it's 4 songs, like I said, 4 songs from Generation Exit, 4 songs from Mark Lind and the Unloved. The Generation Exit half sounds like a continuation of, I've got Lifer here, this was their debut album. It sounds like a continuation of what they were doing on this album. It's got these gritty guitars, it's got these anthemic choruses, it's this raw style of rock and punk with almost like Springsteen-esque kind of storytelling. It's an honest and unpolished EP that, like I said, continues what they were doing on Lifer. So track listing is something that's very important to me. I know in today's age where most people are just streaming music, it really doesn't matter because people will sit down, most people just listen to playlists. So they're not sitting down and listening to an album. I think when you release new music, especially something like this where it's only 4 songs on each side, it's really important to pick the right song to start it off, because with only having 4 songs there, not having the right option to start the album out, you might not get a second chance at a first impression. If someone doesn't like that first song or the first couple of songs, that's it. They're done with it. So it's really important to pick that first song and to make sure it's something that's going to grab the listener, make them want to listen to the rest of the album. The EP kicks off with the song The Hopeful Cynics, which starts off with this really great guitar riff before the backing vocals kick in, and right away you know what kind of album this is going to be. The way the Generation Exit layers their music, it's something you don't hear from a lot of newer bands. But then again, this is a newer band, but these are all guys that have been in the music industry for a long time, and you can tell they know what they're doing. And one thing is clear right from the get-go on this EP, is they know how to construct a damn catchy song. The second song on the Generation Exit side of this EP is their title track, Stay Alive. This is also the first single off the album, and when I started listening to the song, it doesn't sound like the 11th Hour by Rancid from And Out Come the Wolves. But when I first heard the song, that was the very first thing that came to my mind. And I think it was mainly the intro to the song and mainly the guitars in the intro. I think it was a great pick for the first single because I think musically, it's probably the best song, if not the best song. It's definitely one of the best songs on this entire EP. It's got a very catchy chorus, and this is a song that I think is going to be even better played live. The third song on the EP is If You Love Me, Let Me Go, and this is a song that reminds me of like a early Dropkick Murphys style. It sounds like a song that could be right off of Do or Die. I don't think it's just the tone of the song. I think it's also the way that the backing vocals are layered through that song that reminds me of something off that album. And I really like what they did with the chorus and intro on the last song, Down and Out. It has this Offspring kind of vibe to the song, or at least to that part of the song. And that's the one thing I can say about this album is, while all four of these songs all have a very similar sound to them, there are these different, like, intricate differences between each song, especially in the intros for each one of the four songs. The Generation X half of this album was mixed by the bassist Clint Baker, and I'm not sure of his level of expertise, but he did an absolutely fantastic job with the way this half of the album is mixed. Because far too often, especially with newer bands or newer albums, it's almost like there's not really any kind of importance placed on how the album is mixed. I've heard a lot of really great songs, especially over the last several years, where the song is really good, but the way the song is mixed really kind of damages the song overall. A lot of times they'll take the vocals, and the vocals will be buried too much into the music, or vice versa, where, like I said, there's no issues like that on the Generation X half of this album. That was one of my big complaints with the new Blink-182 album, One More Time, is those songs are really good, but the way that those songs are mixed, it negatively impacts all those songs. So it's nice to see an album like this come out. It's hard to sit down and analyze just 4 tracks and give it a 1 to 10 score. But overall, I've got to give this half of the album a 9 out of 10. Really, the only thing I can, and this is kind of nitpicky, the only thing I can really ding the album on is that all 4 of the songs have a very similar sound to them. Like I said, there's differences in all 4 of them. It's not like it's all 4 of the same song. Just the tone overall is very similar. You know, and it's something that happens a lot when you just have 4 songs, because it's a very small sampling of what you would typically get on a bigger album. That's not necessarily a bad thing to have that happen. Sometimes it happens organically, and sometimes a band does it to fit a style or message or really what they want to do or focus on that album. Generation X is easily one of my favorite newer bands. I can't wait to see what they do on their next full-length album. I will say, if you listen to this band and like what you hear, make sure you go back and check out Chris Klink, who's the vocalist for the band. Make sure you go check out his older bands, Born to Lose and Nowhere Bound, because I think you'll like a lot of the stuff from those 2 bands also. So it's time to flip this album over and go over to the Mark Lind and the Unloved half of this album, The Oncoming Storm. So Mark Lind broke off on his own back in 2006 to do his own solo career after, like I said, being part of the Ducky Boys. He'd also been parts of Saints and Sinners and Dirty Water also. They're a Boston-based rock band known for their raw style of songwriting and their blue-collar ethos. They're a blend of punk with a little bit of Americana in there. There's some like Heartland rock, like a dash of soul you can hear in there also. It's a really interesting combination of genres. I think the end result is a very unique style of music, especially in today's day and age. And if we're going back and listen to some of their older albums, the band delivers this like gritty, raw, emotionally charged anthems that I think really speaks to the blue-collar working class people out there. I think in a lot of ways, that style is very similar to what Generation X does, and that's why maybe they work so well together. And with storytelling at its core, the themes of struggle and redemption, loyalty and survival, I think really comes through in their music. And it's all delivered with this sharp edge. I think it's very reminiscent to what Joe Strummer did in his career. So you take his style and you mix in some social distortion and a little bit of Bruce Springsteen in there, and I think you'll get an idea of what this band sounds like. And the same thing with the Generation X side. I think the Mark Lind and the Unloved kick off their side of the EP with a perfect track. It starts off with the title track, The Oncoming Storm, and it sets this almost kind of like defiant tone for the entire album. It's a gritty track with, a little bit of soul mixed in there. It's probably my favorite song, or maybe my second favorite song on this half of the album. So I think it's naturally a great pick to kick off that side of the EP. The second song, World Went Mad, has a little bit of a tone shift in the music. It's a little more rhythmic, it's a little more melodic, and it's a good change of pace. That's one thing I like about listening to, especially when there's just 4 songs, is having a little bit of tone shift from song to song. And I think this is a good way to kind of change up the music a little bit. The third track, Turn the Temperature Down, is, I don't want to call it a skippable track, but it's probably my least favorite song on this entire EP. Yes, it's a little more melodic than what he did or what the band did on the first couple of songs. It doesn't lose that sharpened edge that those songs have. But I think there's just something little that's missing. I can't really put my finger on it, but there's just something about the song. Like I said, I'm not going to call it a skippable track, but it's something that, it just kind of okay to me. And then the EP wraps up with an incredible cover song. It's definitely one of my favorite songs on this EP. It might be my favorite song on here. That's a cover of Nick Lowe's What's So Funny About Peace, Love, and Understanding. It was instantly one of my favorite cover songs of the last several years. And I think it's one of those rare instances where, the cover version, I think, is probably better than the original. Their version of the song adds a layer of, grit and resilience and toughness that the original country rock version didn't. Same thing with the Generation Exit side. It's hard to judge an album just off of 4 songs. But if I was to rate this half of the album, from 1 to 10, I'd probably give it, I kind of go back and forth, 7.5 to 8. I'm going to say an 8 out of 10. I think it's mainly just because of Turn the Temperature Down. That one track, I think, kind of knocks it down a little bit for me. But overall, it's definitely an album I recommend you going out and checking out. At least stream the album. And if you like what you hear, I'll put links down below if you want to go buy a physical copy of this album. So the way I always end off these album reviews is talking about whether or not I would own a copy of this album. I will say that the band was nice enough to send me an advance copy of this, but had I not received a copy from the band, I would have definitely gone out and bought a copy of it. There is a couple of different versions of the vinyl version of this. This album was pressed by 31 Records, which if you're unfamiliar with them, they're a label that's owned by Randall from the Punk Rock Review. I think when the band put out Lifer, 31 Records did the cassette version of that album. So they are a label that's had a previous relationship with Generation Exit. So I think there's 3 different exclusive versions of this album on vinyl. There's one for 31 Records, there's one for Generation Exit's Bandcamp, and then one for Mark Lind and the Unloved's label. The version that I received is the exclusive for Generation Exit. I will say that the artwork on this is, I think, is probably some of the best album artwork from the last several years. It looks really cool, and I do love that it's the exact same on the other side. So this is the Generation Exit Stay Alive side, and then you flip it over, and it's the exact same album artwork for Mark Lind and the Unloved, The Oncoming Storm. There is an insert that comes in here also with just, it looks like just the band list and just the credits for each one of the bands. There's the Generation Exit side, and then there's the Mark Lind and the Unloved. And then the cool thing about this album is, it's like $20 if you want to get it off Bandcamp. Comes in a nice polyline sleeve, something that, there's a lot of $35 and $40 records out there that don't have that. So that's a great added bonus. So even though it comes in that polyline sleeve, I still cleaned it up and put it in an anti-static sleeve. This is a really cool color. This is it's a green and black splatter. There's the Mark Lind and the Unloved half of the album. And then there's the Generation Exit side. What's all I got for you today, guys? Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think of this album. Have you listened to it yet? Are you familiar with either one of these bands? Like I said, there's other bands in the past for each one of these bands to go back through and dig through. So there's a lot of music out there, but let me know what you guys think. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me the old thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.